Hello and welcome to En-Psych-Lopedia. Put on your tinfoil hats and cover your windows with newspapers, because today we're going to be discussing the psychology of conspiracy theories. Like the psychology of misinformation, this area of research is currently booming. And unsurprisingly, this is largely due to the various conspiracy theories surrounding the recent pandemic. Researchers are like anyone else. When a topic is in the limelight, more of us want to take a look at it. There's a plethora of content to cover pertaining to conspiracy theories, and due to this, we decided to break this topic into 4 parts. The first part, which will make up this video, is going to be on personality factors that contribute to people thinking conspiracies are more plausible. Second, we will look at the cognitive characteristics that contribute to falling for conspiracy theories. Third, we will be examining societal and environmental pressures that can cause conspiratorial thinking. Last, we are going to look at a case study and see if we can apply some of the research we discussed to that particular case. This will be the conspiracy Pizzagate. And for the normal disclaimer, even breaking this topic into 4 parts does not mean that we can cover everything. If we miss something that you would have liked us to touch on, feel free to leave it in the comments and we'll consider addressing it in a follow-up video. So without further ado, let's get into the meat of personality and conspiratorial thinking. First, what is a conspiracy theory? Well, even this question isn't easy to answer. Depending on who you ask, the definition can vary. Most tend to think that in order to have a conspiracy theory, you have to have a group of people secretly plotting to achieve a desired end. While this is close to the definition psychologists tend to use, the layperson may include things such as the Loch Ness Monster or the existence of Bigfoot as a conspiracy. There is some variation to what types of conspiracy theories there are, some being folklore like Nessie, religious like the Da Vinci Code, extraterrestrial, involving secret shadow powers such as the Illuminati, or slightly more grounded government-based conspiracies like the JFK assassination. With all that being said, nobody to this point has developed a taxonomy or classification chart for the different types of conspiracy theories. If you surf the web, you will find ideas on how to categorize conspiracy theories, but to this point, nobody has put in the hard statistical work to mathematically back them up, which is obviously very important for sciencey reasons. Also, it's important to mention that not all conspiracy theories are ridiculous or false. In fact, many are proven to be true, such as the Tuskegee experiments or the Gulf of Tonkin incident. But back to our original question, how will we define conspiracy theory going forward in the video? For our purposes, we will stick with the definition psychologists tend to go with, being, a conspiracy theory is an attempt to explain the ultimate cause of a significant political or social event as a secret plot by a covert alliance of powerful individuals or organizations. Even this varies slightly in the field from paper to paper. Just know that when psychologists discuss conspiracy theories, this is typically what we mean. Let's start by looking at some personality factors that make people more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. We are going to start by briefly discussing what traits seem to reduce likelihood of believing in conspiracy theories, and then find out what the Dark Triad is and the dastardly role it plays. Kicking it off, let's take a look at the Big 5 personality assessment. You may or may not have heard of this assessment. If you're a fan of psychology, we bet you have, as it is one of the most popular personality assessments today, and it's often given out in a variety of settings outside of academia. The Big 5 consists of openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, or OCEAN for short. Now, while this is the most popular and, dare we say, famous personality assessment, it actually does not tell us a whole lot about who is likely to believe in conspiracy theories. None of the OCEAN traits are strong predictors of belief in conspiracy theories. A theory that psychologists believe should be true is that if someone is high in neuroticism, in other words, they are more anxious and depressed, and high in openness to experience, which means that they love novel ideas and try new things, they'll be more likely to buy into conspiracy theories because they are hypersensitive to danger and look for unique explanations for that danger. However, the science simply hasn't backed this up. At least one study that we found suggested that this hotshot assessment does have some story to tell, however. This research found that people who are more agreeable, in other words, more likely to be kind, empathetic, and all-around pro-social, are less likely to believe in conspiracy theories. There were similar findings for people who scored high in the trait of conscientiousness, which means that these people are hardworking, organized, and driven. So people who are kind and hardworking tend not to buy into conspiracy theories. But this doesn't tell us who is buying into conspiracy theories, which leads us to the Dark Triad. There's some evidence to suggest that people high in the Dark Triad traits are more likely to have conspiratorial mindsets. So what is the Dark Triad? These 3 personality traits are not included on the Big 5, which are Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and Psychopathy. Let's take these one at a time, starting with Narcissism. The word Narcissus originates from the Greek word Narcissus. Greek mythology tells us a story about a man named Narcissus who falls in love with his own reflection, and because he is unable to peel his eyes away from his reflection, he withers away and dies as a result. Unsurprisingly, people high in narcissism tend to be self-centered, braggadocious, are very sensitive to any criticism, and are not very empathetic toward their peers. Research has suggested that people who are high in narcissism are more likely to find conspiracy theories in general, as well as conspiracy theories pertaining to the recent pandemic, as credible. Note that we have to avoid using the official name of this recent pandemic to dodge issues with YouTube's terms of service. Please bear with us on this awkward linguistic front. We mentioned the recent pandemic conspiracy theory specifically because some of the most recent research has focused on this. But there are some more general findings prior to 2020 and the life-changing events that year brought. While this is speculation on our part, we suspect that this correlation may have something to do with the narcissist's fear of criticism. Other research has demonstrated that people who fear being duped or tricked are more likely to buy into conspiracies. It could be that the hypersensitive narcissist is simply afraid of being tricked and made to look a fool of. To our knowledge, at least at the time of production, nobody has yet tried to examine what specific aspects of narcissism causes these correlations. This is just our hypothesis, but narcissism extends beyond just the individual. People can feel a collective narcissism as well. This occurs when people believe that their in-group, which could be race, nationality, or social group, is superior to other races, nationalities, or social groups. When people have the mindset that their in-group is special or superior in some way, they are more likely to believe that the other groups are plotting against them. Maybe you could recall some conspiratorial ideas floating around in the media pertaining to the Chinese government and the recent pandemic. While not all, some conspiracies seem to take on an othering narrative, suggesting that there is an intention to release the virus in order to harm one country while sparing others. This could be partially due to collective narcissism, causing more nationalistic rhetoric. Next, let's transition to talk about the trait Machiavellianism. The term comes from a Renaissance philosopher, Niccolò Machiavelli. In Machiavelli's writings, he seemed to suggest that backhanded and manipulative tactics to win over political power was okay, if not expected. Given this opinion and the impact of his philosophy on modern-day politics, psychologists used his name to describe a certain set of personality traits: willingness to manipulate, behave in a cunning and calculated way, and being willing to do whatever it takes to get a desired end. These traits we describe as Machiavellian. Like narcissism, people who score high in Machiavellianism are more likely to believe in conspiracies about the recent pandemic. However, some research conducted years prior could give us an explanation as to why there is a relationship between Machiavellianism and conspiratorial beliefs. This paper is titled, "Does It Take One to Know One? Endorsement of Conspiracy Theories is Influenced by Personal Willingness to Conspire." The researchers in this article hypothesize that if a person is manipulative themselves, that they will be more likely to think that others are manipulative as well. This sort of plays on the classic psychological pitfall known as the false consensus effect. The false consensus effect states that we tend to believe that others share our opinions more than they really do. So following this logic, someone who is highly manipulative should be more likely to believe that other people behave in highly manipulative ways. This is exactly what the results suggested. People who scored high in Machiavellianism, specifically acknowledging that they would be willing to conspire, were more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. In some sense, these people are essentially projecting their cunning, manipulative personalities onto the world and seeing dishonest actions where none really exist. Last of the Dark Triad traits is psychopathy. This trait is defined as a tendency for irrationality, antisocial behaviors, and a lack of empathy. This is probably the darkest of the Dark Triad traits. Again, as with the other two traits, people who score high in psychopathy are more likely to have conspiratorial beliefs. This has been linked to another related concept on the more clinical side of psychology, known as schizotypal thinking and automagical thinking. People with schizotypal thinking tend to struggle with rational thought and tend to be more eccentric than your average Joe. This style of thinking can cause them to draw some strange causal connections that someone low in this trait would not. Also, going along with this is odd and magical thinking. This is defined as believing the world is a more whimsical place than it really is, and these people tend to be very superstitious. You can see how people who tend to score higher in psychopathy, schizotypal personality, and odd and magical thinking would be more likely to believe in stuff like the government is secretly trying to turn the frogs gay. Let's never mention this conspiracy again. Anyways, to recap, here's what we learned. The Big Five is not really all that big when it comes to conspiracy theory research. The most impactful findings are that scoring high in agreeableness and conscientiousness tend to reduce one's likelihood of believing in conspiracies. The Dark Triad is where the real meat and potatoes are for personality and conspiratorial thinking. The Dark Triad, consisting of Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and Psychopathy, with honorable mentions to schizotypal and magical and odd thinking, seem to be the main predictors as to what personalities are likely to buy into conspiratorial thinking. However, if you believe in a conspiracy theory, that doesn't mean that you are a narcissist or immoral. In fact, it doesn't mean that at all. Personality traits are just one factor that can nudge an individual towards being receptive to a conspiracy mentality. There are cognitive and environmental pressures that also play a role, but we will discuss this in a later video. This is just one part of what can make people more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. Are you interested in seeing part 2? Let us know in the comments and we'll move it up on the list of topics to cover. Also, let us know if there are any psychological topics you are dying to know more about and want us to do a deep dive on. If you learned something, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you really liked what you saw and want to support our team make more of these videos, consider visiting our Patreon. We'll see you next time.